The judge's gavel came down with the sound of my life ending. Dr. Margaret Sullivan is hereby declared mentally incompetent and unable to manage her affairs. Guardianship is awarded to Mrs. Jennifer Sullivan. I sat in that courtroom, watching my son's wife smile, as she signed papers transferring my $89 million estate into her control. The psychiatric evaluation in my hands read like fiction: severe dementia, paranoid delusions, danger to myself and others. Jennifer leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Don't worry, Mom. I'll take good care of your money." What she didn't know was that I'd been a neurosurgeon for 42 years, and in those 42 years, I'd learned to recognize the effects of psychoactive drugs better than any psychiatrist in that room. Let me tell you exactly what happened 6 months before that courtroom, and why Jennifer Sullivan would soon discover that declaring war on a brain surgeon was the biggest mistake of her pathetic life. 6 months earlier, I was living peacefully in my Victorian home in Pacific Heights, enjoying retirement after 4 decades of saving lives at UCSF Medical Center. My son David visited every Sunday with Jennifer and their twin boys, Michael and James. They seemed like the perfect family. David had married his college sweetheart when they were both 24. Jennifer appeared devoted to the children, volunteering at their school, organizing family vacations, even calling me every Tuesday just to check in. The boys called me Grandma Maggie and lit up whenever they saw me. Michael would run to show me his latest drawings. James would climb onto my lap and ask me to tell stories about saving people's lives in the hospital. I thought I was blessed with the family every retired person dreams of. That perfect Sunday routine lasted for 3 years after my retirement, until the day Jennifer started bringing me tea. "You look tired, Mom," she said one October afternoon, setting down a steaming cup of chamomile. "This will help you relax." The first few times, I thought nothing of it. Jennifer had always been attentive, maybe overly so. She'd call to remind me about doctor appointments I'd never made. She'd show up with groceries I didn't need. She'd rearrange my medications and weekly pill organizers, claiming I seemed forgetful. But after 20 years of treating patients with traumatic brain injuries, you develop an instinct for when something's wrong with your mind. The confusion after drinking her tea wasn't normal aging. The disorientation that came 20 minutes after each cup. The memory lapses where entire conversations disappeared from my mind. The feeling that my thoughts were moving through molasses while everyone around me seemed to be speaking too fast. This wasn't cognitive decline. This was pharmaceutical. I started pretending to drink while secretly disposing of the liquid when Jennifer wasn't looking, pouring it into plants, spilling it accidentally on my clothes, even excusing myself to the bathroom and dumping it down the sink. The confusion stopped immediately. That's when I knew Jennifer was drugging me. But knowing and proving are different things. So I began my investigation the way any good surgeon would, methodically, thoroughly, and with absolute precision. I called my former colleague, Dr. Robert Kim, who ran a private security consultation firm for high-profile medical professionals, doctors who'd received death threats, surgeons being stalked by patients' families, specialists who needed protection from people who blamed them for outcomes beyond their control. "Bob," I said when he answered, "I need surveillance equipment, the kind that can't be detected." "Margaret, what's going on? You sound worried." "Someone is trying to destroy my mind, and I need to catch them in the act." Bob arrived at my house that evening with equipment I didn't know existed. Cameras smaller than buttons, microphones thinner than guitar strings, recording devices that looked like smoke detectors, picture frames, even electrical outlets. "This is military-grade surveillance," he explained as we installed the system. "If someone's trying to hurt you, we'll have evidence that will hold up in any court in the country." Every room was covered except the bathrooms. Every conversation would be recorded. Every movement would be documented. "Bob?" I asked as he finished the installation. "How many doctors have you helped with situations like this?" His expression darkened. More than you'd think, Margaret. And in most cases, the threat was coming from inside their own family. That night, I started keeping detailed logs of every interaction with Jennifer. Every cup of tea she brought. Every conversation we had. Every moment when I felt confused or disoriented. Every time she asked about my finances or my will. The pattern became clear within a week. Jennifer was drugging me every Sunday during their family visits. But she was also making unscheduled visits during the week, letting herself in with a key I'd given her for emergencies. Visits I barely remembered because of whatever she was giving me. But this wasn't just about drugging me. Jennifer was systematically documenting my decline for someone else. I watched her through hidden cameras, taking photographs of me looking confused after she'd drugged me, recording videos of me stumbling or appearing disoriented, even staging scenarios where she'd ask me questions while I was under the influence, then film my incoherent responses. She would hold up photographs of family members and ask me to identify them while I was drugged. She'd ask me simple math questions and record my confused attempts to answer. She'd even bring strangers to the house, people I'd never met, and film me failing to recognize them while claiming they were old friends. Jennifer was building a case against me. The question was, for what purpose? But the most chilling discovery came when I reviewed footage of her alone in my house. While I was unconscious upstairs, Jennifer would go through my personal papers, photographing my will, my investment statements, my insurance policies. She'd even connected a device to my computer and downloaded files I didn't know she had access to. She wasn't just planning something, she was already executing it. I needed to understand exactly what she was giving me, and I needed professional help to do it safely. Because Jennifer Sullivan was about to learn that you don't drug a neurosurgeon without consequences. 3 weeks after discovering Jennifer was drugging me, I had collected enough hair samples, saliva samples, and even traces of the tea itself to get answers. I drove to the medical lab where I'd sent tissue samples for decades during my surgical career. Dr. Maria Santos, the chief toxicologist, was someone I'd worked with on numerous forensic cases when we needed to understand what had caused a patient's symptoms. "Margaret," she said as I handed her the samples, "this is unusual. Are you investigating a case?" "In a way," I replied. "I think someone is trying to poison me." Maria's expression became serious immediately. She'd analyzed evidence in murder cases before. She knew what intentional poisoning looked like. "Give me 48 hours, she said. "If someone is trying to hurt you, we'll know exactly what they're using." 2 days later, Maria called me back to the lab. Her face was pale when she handed me the detailed analysis. "Margaret," she said, "these results are disturbing." "What am I looking at, Maria?" "Haloperidol, risperidone, benzodiazepine compounds, and something called donepezil, which is normally used to treat Alzheimer's symptoms. But in these concentrations, it would actually cause cognitive impairment in a healthy person." She handed me charts showing the precise levels of each drug found in my samples. The cocktail Jennifer was giving me was sophisticated, designed specifically to mimic dementia symptoms while remaining undetectable in standard medical screenings. "Whoever designed this protocol," Maria continued, "they knew exactly what they were doing. This isn't amateur poisoning, Margaret. This is professional-grade pharmaceutical manipulation designed to make you appear mentally incompetent." The room seemed to spin around me as I realized the full scope of what Jennifer was doing. "How long would it take for these drugs to cause permanent damage?" I asked. "At these concentrations? Probably 18 to 24 months. But Margaret..." Maria's voice dropped to a whisper. "Some of these combinations can cause heart problems, especially in older patients. If someone kept increasing the doses..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Jennifer wasn't just trying to make me appear incompetent. At higher doses, this drug cocktail could kill me. "Maria, I need you to seal duplicate copies of these results in your personal safe, document everything with timestamps, And don't tell anyone about this analysis. Margaret, shouldn't you call the police? Not yet. I need more evidence. And I need to understand exactly who Jennifer is working with. Because there was no way Jennifer had designed this pharmaceutical protocol herself. She'd majored in marketing and worked in advertising before marrying David. She had no medical training, no access to these drugs, no knowledge of how to combine them for maximum effect. Someone with serious medical expertise was helping her. As I left the medical complex, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. The black sedan I'd seen parked across from my house for the past week was following me. Jennifer wasn't just drugging me, she was having me watched by professionals. I drove home through a complicated route, turning randomly, even stopping at stores I'd never visited. The sedan stayed with me the entire time. When I pulled into my garage, I saw the driver clearly through my rearview mirror, a man in his 40s with military bearing. Short hair, sunglasses, the kind of physical fitness that suggested law enforcement or private security background. Jennifer had hired surveillance experts to monitor my movements. That evening, David called to check on me. His voice carried genuine concern that broke my heart because I realized he had no idea what his wife was doing to me. "Mom, you seem confused lately," he said. "Yesterday you called me 3 times asking the same question about Michael's soccer game schedule." I realized Jennifer had been manipulating David too. The phone calls he was referencing had happened while I was pretending to be under the influence of her drugs. She'd been staging scenes to convince him that I was declining rapidly. "I'm just tired, sweetheart," I replied, playing the role Jennifer expected. "Maybe I should see a doctor about these memory issues." "Actually," David said, "Jennifer found someone who specializes in memory problems with seniors, Dr. Richard Hartman. He has an excellent reputation and takes our insurance." After hanging up with David, I researched Dr. Hartman immediately using the medical network databases I still had access to. Dr. Richard Hartman, licensed psychiatrist, medical degree from Stanford, residency at UCSF, board certified in geriatric psychiatry. Impressive practice in Marin County focused on cognitive decline in elderly patients. On the surface, he appeared completely legitimate, but when I dug deeper into his patient records, using confidential access I'd maintained through my retirement for consulting on complex cases, I discovered something that chilled me to the bone. Dr. Hartman had declared 37 patients mentally incompetent in the past 3 years, all of them wealthy, all of them over 65, all of them now under the guardianship of younger family members, and 28 of those patients had died within 18 months of their diagnosis. I pulled the death certificates through the medical network: heart attacks, strokes, accidental falls, medication overdoses, even a few suicides by people who'd allegedly been too confused to understand their actions. All apparently natural causes, all within the expected range for elderly people with cognitive decline. But the statistical probability of that many wealthy elderly patients dying so quickly after being declared incompetent was mathematically impossible, unless someone was ensuring they died. Dr. Hartman wasn't just declaring people mentally unfit. He was part of a systematic operation designed to steal from elderly patients and eliminate them when they became inconvenient. I spent the entire night researching every one of Dr. Hartman's deceased patients. The pattern was identical in every case: initial complaints of confusion or memory problems, rapid progression to severe cognitive decline, family members seeking guardianship for the patient's own protection, quick court proceedings with Dr. Hartman's expert testimony, and death within 18 months, usually from causes that couldn't be questioned. But the most disturbing discovery was the financial pattern. Every one of these patients had been wealthy before their diagnosis, and everyone had died essentially broke, with their assets transferred to family members or mysterious trusts established just before their deaths. Dr. Hartman was running a murder-for-hire operation disguised as geriatric psychiatry. I picked up my phone and called Dr. Sarah Chen, my former colleague and current head of neurology at UCSF. "Sarah, I need a favor, I said, and it might save my life. Margaret, it's 3 in the morning. What's wrong? I believe someone is trying to have me declared incompetent to steal my estate, and I think they're planning to kill me once they get control of my money. That's serious, Margaret. What do you need? I need you to document my current cognitive state using every test available. Brain scans, blood work, psychological evaluations, everything. And I need you to do it secretly without anyone knowing we met. Sarah agreed immediately. We scheduled a meeting for the following afternoon at her private office, away from the hospital where we might be seen. But as I hung up the phone, I realized Jennifer's surveillance team would know about my meeting with Sarah unless I was very careful. It was time to start fighting back with the same level of sophistication Jennifer was using against me. Because if I was right about Dr. Hartman, I might only have weeks to live. Meeting with Sarah required military-level operational security. I couldn't let Jennifer's surveillance team discover what I was doing. The next morning, I called my neighbor Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who shopped at the same grocery store as I did. I asked if I could borrow her car for the afternoon, claiming mine was having mechanical problems. "Of course, Margaret," she said. "But are you sure you're comfortable driving? David mentioned you'd been having some confusion lately." Even my neighbors had been told I was declining. Jennifer's manipulation was more extensive than I'd realized. I drove Mrs. Chen's car to a shopping mall 20 miles from my house, parked it, and called an Uber to take me to Sarah's office. If Jennifer's people were tracking my movements, they'd think I was shopping for hours while actually meeting with a neurologist to prove my competence. Sarah had prepared everything: brain scans, cognitive tests, blood work, psychological evaluations. The complete neurological assessment used to diagnose dementia and cognitive decline. "Margaret," Sarah said as we began the testing, "I have to ask, are you experiencing any symptoms that concern you?" "No symptoms that aren't artificially induced," I replied. "But I need documentation that my mind is completely sound before someone tries to prove otherwise." The testing took 4 hours: memory evaluations, problem-solving assessments, brain imaging to check for any signs of actual neurological problems. When Sarah reviewed the results, her expression was a mixture of relief and concern. "Margaret, your cognitive function is exceptional for any age. Your memory, reasoning ability, and problem-solving skills would be impressive for someone 30 years younger. There's absolutely no evidence of dementia, cognitive decline, or any neurological impairment." "What about the blood work?" Sarah's expression darkened. "That's where we have a problem. You have significant concentrations of antipsychotic medications in your system, drugs that would cause exactly the kind of confusion and memory problems associated with dementia." "For how long?" "Based on these concentrations and the buildup in your hair follicles, at least 8 months. Someone has been giving you pharmaceutical-grade drugs designed to impair cognitive function for most of a year." I asked Sarah to seal all the results in her personal safe and create multiple backup copies stored in different locations. Evidence I would need when Jennifer's plan moved to its next phase. But Sarah wasn't finished with her analysis. "Margaret, there's something else. These particular drug combinations. They're not random. Whoever designed this protocol has advanced medical training. They knew exactly which medications to use, in what proportions, and how to administer them to avoid detection in standard medical screenings." "A doctor?" "Almost certainly, and someone with specific expertise in geriatric psychiatry. Dr. Richard Hartman." Jennifer had already found him before she ever mentioned memory problems to David. This entire conspiracy had been planned months in advance. I returned to Mrs. Chen's car, drove back to the shopping mall, and spent another hour actually shopping to maintain my cover story. When I finally returned home, Jennifer was waiting for me. "Mom," she said with apparent concern, "David said you were having car trouble. I was worried when you didn't answer your phone." "Just some errands," I replied, playing the confused elderly woman she expected. I think I got a little turned around coming home. Jennifer's eyes lit up with satisfaction. Every sign of apparent confusion supported her narrative of my declining mental state. The appointment with Dr. Hartman was scheduled for the following Thursday. I had less than a week to prepare for what I knew would be a performance that could determine whether I lived or died. Because I was beginning to understand that Jennifer's plan wasn't just about stealing my money. She was planning to kill me. And Dr. Hartman was going to provide the medical justification for my death. The Thursday morning appointment arrived with perfectly clear autumn weather. I dressed carefully in slightly rumpled clothing, applied makeup to make myself look older and more fragile, and practiced the confused, frightened demeanor Jennifer would expect. David picked me up, his face showing genuine worry about his mother's apparent decline. "Mom, I want you to know that whatever Dr. Hartman says, we're going to take care of you. Jennifer and we'll make sure you have everything you need." My son's sincerity broke my heart. He truly believed he was helping his mother by taking her to see a specialist about her memory problems. He had no idea he was delivering me to someone who intended to declare me incompetent so his wife could steal my fortune. We arrived at Dr. Hartman's office in a medical building overlooking San Francisco Bay. The waiting room was filled with elderly patients, some accompanied by worried family members, others sitting alone with the vacant expressions of people whose minds had genuinely left them. "Mrs. Sullivan?" a nurse called. Not Dr. Sullivan. They'd already begun stripping me of my professional identity. Dr. Hartman was exactly what I'd expected. Mid-50s, gray hair, expensive suit, the kind of professional appearance designed to inspire trust in worried families. His office was decorated with diplomas, awards, and photographs of him with prominent politicians and medical professionals. "Mrs. Sullivan," he said, already using the title that reduced me from accomplished neurosurgeon to generic elderly woman, "I understand you've been having some memory difficulties." I think something's wrong with my mind," I replied, letting my voice waver with perfectly performed confusion. "Sometimes I can't remember conversations I know I just had. Sometimes I can't find my house keys, even when I'm holding them." Jennifer squeezed my hand supportively while exchanging meaningful glances with Dr. Hartman. The examination was theatrical. Simple questions designed to make me appear confused. Memory tests that could be interpreted subjectively. Cognitive assessments where the correct answers had been predetermined. "What year is it?" he asked. "I think 1995, I replied, looking genuinely puzzled. "Can you tell me who the current president is?" "Reagan?" I guessed, then looked to Jennifer for confirmation. "Is it still Reagan?" David's face showed real pain watching his mother apparently deteriorating before his eyes. But Jennifer's expression revealed something different. Satisfaction, like she was watching a performance she'd scripted herself. Which, of course, she was. Dr. Hartman made extensive notes throughout our session, but I noticed something he didn't think I'd caught. The notes were already partially written before I'd even answered his questions. My responses were being recorded on a predetermined form designed to support a diagnosis of severe cognitive decline. "Mrs. Sullivan," Dr. Hartman said at the end of the appointment, "I'm concerned about what appears to be rapidly progressing dementia. I'd like to schedule some additional tests over the next few weeks to better understand the extent of your condition." "What kind of tests?" David asked. "Brain imaging, blood work, and more detailed cognitive evaluations. We need to determine how quickly Mrs. Sullivan's condition is deteriorating and what level of care she'll need going forward." Over the next month, I submitted to Dr. Hartman's evaluations while secretly documenting everything through Bob's surveillance equipment. Each appointment followed the same pattern. Predetermined questions designed to elicit confused responses. Tests where my performance was interpreted through the lens of severe cognitive decline, and growing documentation of my supposed mental incompetence. But while I was playing the confused patient during the day, I was conducting my own investigation at night. Hidden microphones recorded Dr. Hartman coaching Jennifer on specific symptoms to report. Cameras captured them discussing my case in ways that revealed they'd been planning this for months. Financial tracking software showed payments flowing from a shell corporation registered to Jennifer's maiden name directly into Dr. Hartman's personal accounts. She'd paid him $125,000 to declare me incompetent. But the conspiracy went deeper than I'd imagined. Through my investigation, I discovered Jennifer had been planning this for over 2 years. She'd researched my medical history, identified vulnerabilities in my retirement routine, and even studied my financial portfolio to understand exactly what she'd be stealing. She'd hired a team of professionals. Marcus Webb, the surveillance expert watching my house, was a former police detective specializing in elder abuse investigations. Ironically, he was now facilitating one. Dr. Hartman provided fraudulent medical opinions backed by his legitimate credentials. A legal consultant named Patricia Vance was helping Jennifer navigate guardianship laws and prepare court documents. Jennifer had spent over $400,000 assembling a team to steal my $89 million estate. But the most chilling discovery came when I gained access to Jennifer's personal email account using equipment Bob had provided. Jennifer had been corresponding with an organization called Asset Management Solutions. The email thread revealed the true scope of her operation, and it was far worse than simple theft. They weren't just planning to steal my estate. They had a systematic timeline for my death. Step 1. Establish mental incompetency through fraudulent psychiatric evaluation. Step 2. Gain legal guardianship and control of all my financial assets. Step 3. Transfer maximum funds to offshore accounts while maintaining plausible expenses. Step 4. Take out substantial life insurance policies with Jennifer as beneficiary. Step 5. Arrange my natural death within 18 months of guardianship to avoid suspicion. Jennifer wasn't just planning theft, she was planning murder. And according to the email timeline I'd discovered, my death was scheduled for 8 weeks after the guardianship hearing. But there was one more revelation that made my blood freeze. Asset Management Solutions wasn't just helping Jennifer. They were an international organization that specialized in elder abuse on an industrial scale. Jennifer's case against me was just one of dozens they were managing across multiple states. They had a systematic approach to identifying wealthy elderly targets, recruiting family members willing to participate in their murders, and providing all the professional resources needed to steal their estates while making their deaths appear natural. Dr. Hartman was their preferred medical expert. He'd been declaring wealthy seniors incompetent and then facilitating their deaths for over 7 years. I wasn't just fighting for my money or even my life. I was fighting against an organized criminal enterprise that had murdered dozens of people and stolen hundreds of millions of dollars. But Jennifer had made one critical mistake in choosing me as a target. She'd declared war on someone whose entire career had been built on making life and death decisions under pressure. And I was about to show her exactly what a surgeon does when fighting for survival. The guardianship hearing was scheduled for a Friday morning in November. I arrived at the courthouse playing my role with Academy Award-level precision, confused, fragile, barely able to navigate the building without assistance from David and Jennifer. Jennifer had assembled an impressive array of witnesses, each one paid by her shell corporation to provide false testimony about my mental decline. Dr. Hartman testified first, presenting charts and graphs showing my severe cognitive deterioration over the past 6 months. He described a woman who could barely remember her own name, who posed a danger to herself and others, who needed immediate protection through guardianship. "Your Honor," Dr. Hartman said with practiced sincerity, "Mrs. Sullivan's condition has deteriorated so rapidly that I believe she may only have months of lucid consciousness remaining. Her family needs legal authority to make decisions for her protection." Linda Martinez, the social worker Jennifer had hired, described home visits where I'd allegedly been found wandering in my nightgown, unable to recognize family members or remember basic information about my life. She asked me who I was 3 times during our conversation, Martinez testified. She couldn't remember living in her own house or identify photographs of her own grandchildren. A pharmacist named Robert Chen claimed I'd been filling prescriptions erratically, sometimes appearing confused about medications I'd supposedly been taking for years. She tried to fill the same prescription twice in one day, he said. When I explained this to her, she became agitated and accused me of lying. Even a neighbor, Mrs. Williams, testified that she'd seen me standing in my front yard at 3 in the morning, apparently lost and disoriented, wearing only pajamas in 40-degree weather. I was concerned for her safety, Mrs. Williams said. She didn't seem to recognize me, even though we've been neighbors for 15 years. Every single witness had been paid by Jennifer's Shell Corporation. Every piece of evidence had been fabricated, and every detail had been orchestrated with the precision of a military operation. But Jennifer had made one critical mistake. She'd underestimated exactly how thorough a brain surgeon's investigation could be. While she'd been building her case against me, I'd been building a case against her. Hidden cameras had recorded her drugging my tea every Sunday for 8 months. Audio recordings captured her coaching sessions with Dr. Hartman, including specific instructions on what symptoms to emphasize in his evaluation and which test results to interpret as evidence of dementia. Financial records showed the complete money trail from her Shell Corporation to every witness, every professional, every person involved in the conspiracy. Over $600,000 in payments to fabricate evidence of my incompetence. Bank statements revealed that Jennifer had been stealing from my accounts for over 18 months, using forged documents and identity theft to access funds from my trust accounts, investment portfolios, even my checking account. She'd stolen nearly $800,000 to pay for the very conspiracy designed to steal the remaining $88 million. But the most damning evidence was her correspondence with asset management solutions and the life insurance companies. Jennifer had taken out 7 separate life insurance policies on me, totaling $12.4 million. The applications were filled with false medical information designed to hide my actual health status and ensure maximum payouts upon my death. The insurance policies had been purchased over a 2-year period, each one from a different company to avoid triggering fraud detection systems. Jennifer had forged my signature on every application, and even hired a woman to impersonate me during required medical examinations. She'd been planning my murder since before she ever started drugging me. The judge reviewed Dr. Hartman's psychiatric evaluation, the witness testimonies, and Jennifer's petition for guardianship with what appeared to be careful consideration. Then he asked if I had anything to say for myself. "Your Honor," I said, my voice trembling with what everyone assumed was confusion. "I just want my family to be happy. If Jennifer thinks she can take better care of my affairs than I can, maybe that's what's best for everyone." The courtroom fell completely silent. David looked heartbroken, watching his mother surrender control of her life to his wife. Jennifer squeezed my hand with fake sympathy, playing the devoted daughter-in-law protecting her vulnerable mother-in-law. "I promise, Mom," she whispered loud enough for the judge to hear. "I'll take care of everything." The gavel came down, guardianship awarded to Jennifer Sullivan. But what Jennifer didn't know was that while she'd been celebrating her legal victory, federal agents had been listening to every word. The tiny device I'd activated under the courtroom table was connected directly to the FBI field office in San Francisco. Every moment of the hearing, every piece of false testimony, every fraudulent document presentation had been recorded by federal law enforcement. Jennifer walked me out of the courthouse, her arm around my shoulders like a devoted family member protecting a vulnerable elderly woman. "Don't worry, Mom," she said as we reached the parking garage. "I'll handle everything from now on." That night, she celebrated with champagne and made phone calls to her co-conspirators from my house. I was upstairs, supposedly sleeping peacefully under the influence of her evening dose of psychiatric medications. But actually, I was listening through the surveillance system as Jennifer discussed the final phase of her plan. "It's done," she told her contact at Asset Management Solutions. "The old bird is officially under my control. Transfer the insurance payments to the Cayman account, and let's move to phase 2. "How long until completion?" the voice asked. 6 weeks, Jennifer replied. "The contractors arrive Monday to install the equipment. By Christmas, she'll be gone, and we'll have access to the full estate plus the life insurance payouts." Phase 2 was my murder. Jennifer had hired professionals, not the amateur poison approach she'd been using, but actual killers with experience staging accidental deaths. They were planning to make it look like a fall down my Victorian home's steep staircase, triggered by my dementia-related confusion. According to the conversation I recorded that night, they'd already purchased the equipment needed to create a collapsing stair railing that would activate when I used it. My death would appear to be a tragic accident, caused by an elderly woman with severe dementia losing her footing on a staircase she'd used safely for 30 years. Jennifer had even hired a cleanup crew to remove any evidence of the rigged equipment after my accident. But what Jennifer didn't know was that I'd been prepared for this moment for months. And tomorrow morning, she was about to discover that declaring war on someone who spent 40 years operating on the most dangerous organ in the human body was a fatal mistake. Because while Jennifer had been planning my death, I'd been planning her complete destruction. Jennifer arrived at my house Monday morning with coffee and pastries, playing the devoted daughter-in-law role with perfect precision. "Good morning, Mom," she said sweetly, setting breakfast on the kitchen table. "I thought we could review your new financial arrangements while we eat." I nodded helplessly, shuffling to the table where she'd laid out legal documents transferring my entire estate into accounts she controlled. "This document transfers your house to a trust I'll manage for your protection," she explained patiently, pointing to signature lines. "This one moves your investment portfolio under my supervision, and this one gives me complete authority over your medical decisions." As she explained each paper, I signed with shaking hands, looking every bit the confused elderly woman she needed me to be. What Jennifer didn't notice was the tiny device I'd activated under the table, a recording system Bob had installed that transmitted directly to the FBI field office in San Francisco. Every word of our conversation was being documented by federal agents in real time. "Now, Mom," Jennifer continued after I'd signed the documents, "I think it would be best if you stayed upstairs today. I have some contractors coming to install safety railings on your staircase." The contractors were the killers she'd hired, men with criminal records longer than my surgical career, paid to stage my accidental death by making my staircase railing collapse when I used it. "That sounds wonderful, dear," I replied with a grateful smile. "You're so thoughtful to worry about my safety." Jennifer's smile was genuine for the first time in months. Everything was proceeding exactly according to plan. But as Jennifer left to meet her hired killers, I was already implementing the counter-operation I'd been preparing for weeks. My first call went to Dr. Sarah Chen. "Sarah, it's time. Execute Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was our code for the evidence package I'd prepared. Within minutes, sealed documents containing my cognitive evaluations, recordings of Jennifer's conspiracy, and financial evidence of the entire operation were being delivered simultaneously to the FBI, the California Medical Board, the San Francisco District Attorney's Office, and the Financial Crimes Division of the Treasury Department. My second call went to Marcus Rodriguez, a private investigator I'd hired through my attorney. Marcus specialized in elder abuse cases and had been documenting Jennifer's activities for months, building an evidence trail that connected her to Dr. Hartman, Asset Management Solutions, and now the hired killers. "Marcus, they're moving today. Are your people in position?" "Every entrance is covered, Doc. When those men arrive, we'll have everything on camera. Federal agents are standing by to move the moment they start installing equipment." My third call was to someone Jennifer would never have expected, her own mother. "Mrs. Patterson," I said, "this is Margaret Sullivan. I have something urgent to show you about your daughter." Jennifer's mother arrived 20 minutes later, accompanied by her husband and Jennifer's younger sister. I played them selected recordings of Jennifer discussing my planned murder, her theft of my estate, and her detailed timeline for eliminating me once the insurance money was secured. They listened in horror as their daughter's voice described me as a useless old woman who won't die fast enough and discussed the most efficient methods for staging my accidental death. "She's talking about murdering you," Mrs. Patterson whispered, tears streaming down her face. "My own daughter is planning to kill someone I've known for 15 years. Jennifer's sister Carol was equally shocked. I knew Jennifer had become obsessed with money since Dad died, but this is evil. But the most important call was still to come. At exactly 11 o'clock, as Jennifer's hired killers were entering my house through the back door, I dialed 911. "This is Dr. Margaret Sullivan at 2847 Pacific Avenue," I said, my voice now clear and strong. "I'm a retired neurosurgeon, and I'm about to be murdered by my daughter-in-law and her hired accomplices. They're in my house right now, installing equipment designed to kill me and make it look like an accident." The 911 operator asked if I was in immediate danger. "Ma'am," I replied, "I've been in danger for 10 months, but today, the danger ends." Through Bob's surveillance system, I watched Jennifer direct two men as they loosened the bolts on my staircase railing, installed a collapse mechanism that would activate when pressure was applied, and tested their equipment to ensure it would create a fatal fall. The killers were professionals. One was a former construction worker who specialized in staging accidental structural failures. The other was an ex-military demolitions expert who understood exactly how much force was needed to create a fall that would be fatal, but appear accidental. Jennifer supervised every detail, checking her phone constantly for updates from Asset Management Solutions. "Remember," she told them, "it has to look like she just lost her balance. An old woman with dementia, confused about her surroundings, grabbing onto a railing that couldn't support her weight." At 11:47 a.m., exactly 17 minutes after my call to 911, FBI tactical teams surrounded my house. I heard Jennifer's voice change from confident direction to panic as agents appeared at every entrance. "What's happening?" she screamed as armed federal agents burst through my front door. "This woman has dementia. She's been declared incompetent. She doesn't know what she's saying." Special Agent Lisa Park, the FBI team leader, held up her badge as tactical officers secured the scene. "Mrs. Jennifer Sullivan, you're under arrest for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, insurance fraud, identity theft, and wire fraud. You have the right to remain silent." The two killers were arrested while still holding tools designed to stage my accidental death, evidence bags filled with the collapse mechanism they'd installed on my staircase, photographs documenting their equipment and Jennifer's supervision of the operation. But Jennifer wasn't finished fighting. "This is insane!" she shouted as they placed her in handcuffs. "Dr. Sullivan has severe dementia. She was declared incompetent by a judge just last week. She's been making up paranoid fantasies for months." Agent Park looked at Jennifer with the expression of someone who'd been listening to recorded evidence for hours. "Mrs. Sullivan," she said calmly, "we have 8 months of surveillance footage showing you drugging Dr. Sullivan's tea. We have recordings of your conversations with Dr. Hartman where you paid him to provide false psychiatric evaluations. We have financial records showing payments to every witness who testified in your fraudulent guardianship hearing." Jennifer's face went white as Agent Park continued. "We also have recordings of your conversations with Asset Management Solutions discussing Dr. Sullivan's planned murder, and we have video footage from this morning showing you directing professional killers as they installed equipment designed to stage her accidental death." The enormity of what was happening began to sink in as Jennifer realized the scope of evidence against her. "But she's mentally incompetent," Jennifer insisted desperately. "Ask Dr. Hartman. Ask the social worker. Ask anyone who's seen her lately." "We did ask Dr. Hartman," Agent Park replied. "He's also under arrest. along with Linda Martinez, Robert Chen, Mrs. Williams, and every other person you paid to provide false testimony. As federal agents escorted Jennifer from my house, she looked back at me with an expression of complete shock. "You're supposed to be confused," she said, as if her plan had been a law of physics rather than a criminal conspiracy. "You're supposed to be helpless." I looked at my daughter-in-law, the woman who'd spent 2 years planning my murder, and spoke in the clear, strong voice of someone whose mind had never been sharper. "Jennifer," I said, "I've been a neurosurgeon for 42 years. Did you really think I wouldn't notice when someone was trying to destroy my brain?" That was the last time Jennifer Sullivan ever underestimated anyone. The media coverage was immediate and extensive. Daughter-in-law's murder plot against retired neurosurgeon dominated headlines across the country. News stations interviewed former patients, colleagues, and neighbors, all expressing shock that someone had tried to murder one of the most respected doctors in San Francisco. But the story was bigger than just Jennifer's conspiracy against me. The FBI's investigation into asset management solutions revealed the largest elder abuse network in American history. Over 300 wealthy seniors had been targeted for systematic theft and murder across 12 states. The organization operated like a corporation. They had scouts who identified wealthy elderly targets, researchers who investigated their assets and family situations, recruiters who approached family members willing to participate in murder for financial gain, professional teams that provided medical experts, legal consultants, surveillance specialists, and killers. Jennifer had been just one client in a business model designed to steal billions of dollars from vulnerable elderly people. Dr. Hartman's arrest led to revelations that shattered confidence in the entire geriatric psychiatry field. Federal agents discovered that he'd declared 63 patients mentally incompetent over the past decade. 47 of those patients had died within 2 years of their diagnosis. His office files contained detailed profiles of wealthy seniors, complete with asset valuations, family relationship analyses, and timelines for systematic theft and elimination. Dr. Hartman had been running a murder-for-hire operation disguised as medical practice for nearly 10 years. The medical board revoked his license permanently and opened investigations into every patient he'd ever treated. Families of his previous victims filed wrongful death lawsuits totaling over $800 million. But the most shocking discovery was the scope of professional corruption asset management solutions had achieved. Social workers, nurses, pharmacists, bank employees, insurance agents, even judges had been recruited into their network. They'd created an entire parallel system designed to facilitate elder abuse while making it appear legitimate. Linda Martinez had provided false social services reports on over 40 elderly clients. Robert Chen had falsified pharmacy records to support medication-related incompetence claims. Mrs. Williams and dozens of other neighbors were actually paid actors who specialized in providing false witness testimony. The federal investigation expanded to include the IRS, DEA, Treasury Department, and Interpol as they traced the international scope of the organization. Jennifer's personal charges were devastating. Federal prosecutors filed 23 separate counts, including attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, elder abuse, insurance fraud, identity theft, wire fraud, money laundering, and racketeering. But the evidence against her was so overwhelming that her defense attorney advised her to plead guilty in exchange for life imprisonment rather than face a potential death sentence. The guardianship ruling was overturned within 24 hours. My estate was returned to my complete control, plus damages from Jennifer's theft totaling $2.4 million in recovered funds and penalties. My son David was devastated but relieved. He'd been unknowingly manipulated into supporting Jennifer's scheme against his own mother, and the guilt was overwhelming. "Mom," he said when we met privately after Jennifer's arrest, "I'm so sorry. I thought I was helping you by supporting the guardianship. I thought Jennifer was taking care of you." "David," I replied, "you were being manipulated by professionals. Jennifer spent 2 years and over $800,000 creating a fake reality where I appeared to be declining. Even medical experts who weren't corrupt might have been fooled. David filed for divorce immediately and requested full custody of the twins, citing Jennifer's criminal behavior and potential danger to the children. The court granted his petition within days. Michael and James, now 11 years old, were confused but relieved when their father explained that their mother had been hurting Grandma Maggie and wouldn't be coming home. "Is Mommy sick?" Michael asked. "In a way," David replied carefully. "She made very bad choices that hurt people we love." We began the process of rebuilding our family relationships based on honesty rather than Jennifer's manipulation. The twins started spending weekends with me, and we created new traditions based on truth, respect, and genuine affection. But Jennifer's sentencing hearing was still to come, and it would provide the final satisfaction in a case that had consumed 2 years of my life. 6 months after her arrest, Jennifer appeared in federal court for sentencing. She'd lost 60 pounds in county jail. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by orange scrubs. Her confident smile had been replaced by the hollow expression of someone whose perfect plan had collapsed completely. Judge William Morrison reviewed the evidence methodically: the systematic drugging, the fake psychiatric evaluations, the hired killers, the stolen funds, the life insurance fraud, and the detailed murder timeline that would have ended my life. "Mrs. Sullivan," he said, looking directly at Jennifer, "in 52 years on this bench, I have never encountered a more calculated, cold-blooded attempt to murder a family member. You didn't just plan to kill Dr. Sullivan. You tortured her for 10 months, stole her money to pay for her own murder, manipulated her son into supporting your scheme, and endangered her grandchildren by bringing killers into their family home." The judge paused, letting the weight of Jennifer's crimes settle over the courtroom. "But perhaps most disturbing is that you participated in an organization responsible for the deaths of dozens of elderly people. Your case against Dr. Sullivan was just one murder in a systematic business model designed to steal from and eliminate vulnerable seniors across the country." He sentenced Jennifer to life in prison without possibility of parole, plus 99 years for the federal charges. Dr. Hartman received life plus 160 years. The hired killers got death sentences. Linda Martinez got 45 years. Asset Management Solutions leadership received multiple life sentences. Over 200 people were convicted in the federal investigation that Jennifer's case had triggered. But the real victory extended far beyond criminal sentences. The investigation led to complete reform of elder protection laws across the United States. The Margaret Sullivan protections now require independent medical evaluations, financial audits, criminal background checks, and mandatory waiting periods for any guardianship proceedings. 16 states passed legislation making elder abuse a federal crime with mandatory life sentences. Medical licensing boards implemented new oversight procedures for geriatric specialists. Insurance companies created fraud detection systems specifically designed to identify suspicious life insurance applications on elderly people. Jennifer's attempt to murder me had inadvertently exposed and destroyed the largest elder abuse network in history. But perhaps the most satisfying moment came a year after Jennifer's conviction, when I received a letter from federal prison. Jennifer had written to me from her cell, asking for forgiveness and claiming she'd been desperate and not thinking clearly when she planned my murder. I wrote back with a single sentence. "I'm a neurosurgeon, Jennifer. I know exactly what clear thinking looks like." I never heard from her again. 3 years after Jennifer's conviction, my life had transformed in ways I never expected when I first noticed something wrong with my tea. The Sullivan Foundation for Elder Protection had become the leading organization fighting elder abuse in North America. We'd trained over 25,000 medical professionals, social workers, and law enforcement officers to recognize signs of systematic exploitation. Our hotline had prevented over 1,500 potential elder abuse cases. Most importantly, we'd created a network of retired professionals who volunteer to help elderly people facing suspicious guardianship proceedings or questionable medical evaluations. When families try to exploit vulnerable seniors, they now face organized opposition from people who understand exactly how these conspiracies work. My personal relationships had also been rebuilt on foundations of truth rather than manipulation. David and I spent every Sunday together with Michael and James, now 14 years old and thriving under their father's care. They knew their grandmother as someone who'd fought for her family and won, teaching them that being underestimated could be their greatest advantage. "Grandma Maggie," James asked me recently, "how did you know Mommy Jennifer was lying when all the doctors said you were sick?" "Because," I told him, "I listened to my own mind instead of letting other people tell me what I should think. Your brain is the most important tool you have. Trust it, protect it, and never let anyone convince you it's not working properly." The twins were learning that real strength comes from preparation, intelligence, and the courage to fight when fighting becomes necessary. They understood that their mother had made evil choices, but they also learned that evil choices have consequences. Michael had decided he wanted to become a doctor like his grandmother. James was interested in law enforcement, inspired by the FBI agents who'd saved my life. Both boys understood that their education was the most important investment they'd ever make. But my greatest satisfaction came from the letters I received from other elderly people who'd used my experience to protect themselves from similar conspiracies. A 78-year-old man in Texas whose daughter was drugging him with antidepressants to make him appear suicidal. A 69-year-old woman in Florida whose son was forging documents to steal her house. An 81-year-old widower in Oregon whose nephew was working with a corrupt social worker to have him declared incompetent. Each one had recognized the warning signs because of my story. Each one had documented evidence and built cases against their abusers. Each one had fought back and won. Jennifer was serving her life sentence in federal prison, where she'd spend every remaining day thinking about the $89 million she'd tried to steal and the life she'd destroyed in the process. Every night she probably wondered how a confused old woman had outsmarted her sophisticated murder conspiracy and destroyed everything she'd worked years to accomplish. The answer was simple. She never understood who she was fighting. I wasn't just Margaret Sullivan, confused retiree. I was Dr. Margaret Sullivan, neurosurgeon, who'd spent 42 years making life-and-death decisions under pressure. Someone who understood that the most dangerous opponent is the one who appears weakest, but has been preparing for war the entire time. Jennifer thought she was manipulating a vulnerable elderly woman. Instead, she declared war on someone whose entire career had been built on precision, preparation, and the ability to cut through complex problems with surgical accuracy. She underestimated my intelligence. She underestimated my professional network. She underestimated my capacity for strategic thinking under pressure. She underestimated my access to resources and expertise. But most of all, she underestimated how far a grandmother will go to protect her family and community from predators. Jennifer never stood a chance against someone who'd spent decades fighting death itself and winning. The hardest lesson I learned about people is this. Those who appear most loving and devoted are sometimes the most dangerous. The ones who bring you tea and call you mom while secretly planning your death? The ones who manipulate your own children into supporting their schemes against you? Trust must be earned through consistent actions over time, not through words or gestures designed to manipulate your emotions. When someone's behavior doesn't match their claims of love, always believe their behavior. But here's what I want you to remember most. Your voice matters more than you know. Your instincts matter more than other people's opinions. When something feels wrong, investigate it. Document everything. Build evidence. Seek professional help. Never let anyone convince you that you're too old, too confused, too vulnerable, or too isolated to fight for yourself. Some of the most dangerous people in the world are counting on your self-doubt to make their crimes easier. The person everyone underestimates might be the most prepared for battle. The quiet one taking notes might be building the case that destroys you. The confused elderly person might have 40 years of professional expertise and a network of colleagues ready to help them fight back. Sometimes trying to murder a surgeon who spent decades saving lives is the last mistake you'll ever make as a free person. Jennifer Sullivan learned that lesson too late. Don't let the people in your life make the same mistake. Remember, your inner wisdom matters more than anyone else's opinions. When decades of experience tell you something is wrong, that wisdom is trying to protect you. Margaret's inner wisdom, 42 years of surgical precision, told her Jennifer was dangerous before she had proof. She trusted that wisdom, documented everything, and saved her own life. Your inner wisdom matters. Listen to it, trust it, and act on it. Sometimes your accumulated wisdom is the only thing standing between you and someone who wants to destroy you.